finding out which quarterbacks have easy or difficult schedules for the 2021 fantasy season. For that conversation, we go to SI fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano. Fabs, you did a tremendous job, a lot of research. So I got to give you a lot of credit because there's a lot of research, a lot of spreadsheets, which are not exactly my forte. So I'm glad you took this one. But you did go through every team's quarterback and you ranked them 1 through 32, 1 being the easiest, 32 being the most difficult. And coming out number 1, Trevor Lawrence has the easiest quarterback schedule in fantasy this year.
Yeah, based on last year's numbers, pretty good, right? You're a rookie coming in. You are the apple of everyone's eye in Duval County, and you get a nice schedule. Of course, part of that, Bill, is because you play in the AFC South, and you get to play the Texans and the Titans twice. Both defenses not good against quarterbacks last year. But he's also got matchups against the Jets and Zach Wilson, the other one of the other rookie quarterbacks, the Seahawks, who were terrible against quarterbacks last year, and Atlanta. So Lawrence is being picked in best ball as a QB2 right now. I think he'll be a QB2 in redrafts as well. And the schedule helps his value somewhat, for sure.
And then also rounding out this top 5, there are some questions for some of these quarterbacks, right? We don't know the Patriots, they're the third easiest. We don't know if Cam or Mac Jones. For the Saints, we don't know if it's going to be Jameis or Taysom Hill. And for the Bears, we don't know if it's going to be Justin Fields or Andy Dalton. So other than Lawrence, it seems like there's a lot of question marks. Ben Roethlisberger does have the second easiest schedule. But let's move over to the top 5 most difficult schedules. And since we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to start for the Packers this year, let's just go ahead and skip to the second most difficult schedule, and that's Kirk Cousins with the Vikings.
And people forget, Kirk Cousins was really good in the second half of last year. He was the QB4, but the schedule is not going to do him any favors. You got the Packers and the Bears twice because, of course, in division games. Then you got the Ravens, the Chargers, the 49ers, who should be healthy, the Steelers, and the Rams. Like, that's a really tough slate of games for Kirk Cousins. He's not going to be drafted anything more than a QB2. He'll be a matchup-based starter in 2021, but based on that schedule, man, I don't think he's going to be able to duplicate the success he had in the second half of last year.
And then rounding out that bottom 5 for the most difficult is the Packers, Vikings, the Titans, Ryan Tannehill, Daniel Jones of the New York Giants, and then Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens have a rough ride for the regular season, which, by the way, since we now have an 18-game regular season in the NFL, the fantasy regular season is weeks 1 through 14, with the playoffs starting 15, 16, and 17. You also did a playoff strength of schedule, and it turns out that Tua Tagovailoa of the Miami Dolphins, he has the easiest passing schedule during those weeks.
Yeah, and I'd say Tua I would consider him a sleeper. Right? I mean, look what Miami did in the offseason. You bring in Will Fuller, you're bringing Jalen Waddle, Hunter Long, so the weapons are going to be there. But in that 3-week stretch, he plays the Jets and the Titans. That's pretty good. They allowed the 3rd and 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks last season. So Tua might be a guy you want to have on your roster in redrafts and maybe someone to hold on to during the course of the season, because later on, he could be pretty valuable based on these matchups.
All right, so those are just some insight into the passers for fantasy football. Fabs, you also did some great research on running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. You can check it all out on Sports Illustrated by going to si.com/fantasy.